Hi, I'm Mike Fleming, president and founder of Sales Tax and More. And this morning I'd like to talk about services. Lots of misconceptions about services being taxable or not uh, throughout the years that I've been doing this. But recently we've been, getting a lot of pushback when our salespeople are talking to prospective clients and letting them know that yes, services are taxable, or many services are taxable. Even when I'm talking to, CPAs and other accounting professionals, I'm still hearing, well, services aren't taxable in my state. Unfortunately, I do not know of a state out there that doesn't tax at least some services. Now, I think some of this confusion comes from, when we talk about tangible personal property, that's taxable by default unless there's some sort of specific exemption. Whereas when we talk about services, we say that's usually not taxable by default unless the services are specifically enumerated or specifically listed as being taxable. So I think that a lot of people hear that and they say, oh, well, services are not taxable. And that's not true because a lot of states, and in fact, more and more states every year are taxing more and more services. And they are listing these services and they're saying these services are now taxable. So in fact, there are four states that tax pretty much every service. And then, services that are not taxable are specifically enumerated. And those four states would be Hawaii, New Mexico, West Virginia, and South Dakota. Hawaii and South Dakota, they even tax accounting and legal services. So many of us who do business in multiple states, now that we have economic nexus out there, could actually be taxable in the states of Hawaii and South Dakota. So, what we really need to realize is we cannot just assume that services are not taxable. California, let's use some examples from California because California is a state that doesn't tax very many services. So a lot of people say, oh, well, no services are taxable. Well, they used to have a great example right on their website, and it had to do with drapes. So if you were purchasing drapes and you went down to the local store and you had your measurements and, whether the person who's selling you the drapes, uh, subcontracted out that alteration or they did the alterations themselves, that's a taxable service because it's being sold in conjunction with tangible personal property. Now, let's say you go home and you don't like the way those drapes look in the bedroom. You decide you want to put them in the game room and you take new measurements. You bring them down to the local, tailor's, local alteration shop. And at this point, it's the same day, it's the same drapes, but since it's not being sold in conjunction, this alteration service is not being sold in the conjunction with the sale of tangible personal property, that's no longer a taxable service. So sometimes, we've got to look at the total fact set. We can have a service that's either taxable or not, depending on how it's used and whether it's sold in conjunction with tangible personal property or not. Another big one in California is fabrication and/or assembly. And fabrication and/or assembly are actually taxable services in California. And, this comes up with contractors a lot because, if you go and you attach something to real property and then add on to it, well, that's not going to be taxable. But if you go and you put together shelving, let's say, in a department store, and then you connect it to the floor, that's going to be called assembly, and that is going to be taxable. But if you put the first piece, if you bolt that into the floor or the wall, and then you add the additional pieces on, that is not going to be considered assembly. That's usually going to be an improvement to the real property. So how something is being done or the order in which it's being done can make it taxable or not. Now, other states, let's use Texas as an example. You know, we say that something is only taxable if it's specifically, you know, enumerated. And if you're going quick in Texas and you're looking for website design or website hosting, you'll look at the list of services and that's not listed. So we see a lot of accountants, a lot of CPAs, a lot of companies saying, oh, well, you know, what we do is not taxable in the state of Texas because we're doing website design or website hosting. And those are not specifically enumerated. However, it's long been held in lots of cases out there, lots of opinions where both website design and website hosting are considered to be data processing. So, you know, common sense, if I'm, you know, looking at this, I don't immediately think of data processing when I think of website design or website hosting. But some states, you know, they look at what you're selling through the prism of how they tax things, and they start to stretch the envelope. And that's what's happened in Texas. Data processing, it's a big catch-all. And the state of Texas claims that, and they've been successful at, you know, proclaiming this for, you know, over the last 25 years or so. So this is not something new. It's just not something that a lot of people are aware of. But the website hosting and website design, creation of a website is taxable as data processing in the state of Texas. So a lot more services are taxable than we think. Sometimes it's all how it's put on an invoice. So, you know, we talked earlier about, you know, whether it's connected with the sale of tangible personal property. Sometimes if it's, you know, separately stated and itemized, then services like training and implementation could be exempt. In some states, you know, if you're selling tangible personal property, they're going to be taxable no matter what, whether they're separately stated or not. Services to real property, those are taxable services in many states. When we say services to real property, we're talking about janitorial services, we're talking about landscaping services. So many services that so many people that we're talking to dismiss as not being taxable are actually taxable. And as, you know, our clients, or as we start selling into more states, or as you start selling into more states, we can't assume what the rules were in all of the other states that we're selling into are going to be the same in this new state. Because there is a lot of discrepancy as to what's taxable and what's not taxable. You know, the state of Washington came in, you know, services delivered electronically is, you know, what a lot of companies are doing nowadays. And the state of Washington has come out and said that any service that's delivered electronically that uses one or more computer applications is going to be taxable. So a lot of people think that services delivered over the internet are not taxable, you know, or just that services are not taxable and in general. And a state like Washington is coming out and addressing both of those issues and are saying, hey, this is taxable. So, you know, I guess my bottom line is we can't assume that something is just not taxable, you know, especially if we're selling it in conjunction with tangible personal property. So please remember that every state taxes at least some services. And if you have greater questions about this, you want to go into detail, then I suggest doing some research or perhaps calling us and having us do some research. We're very good. We can tell you what the rules are for certain services in certain states, but we can't possibly keep all of it at the top of our head here. So sometimes research is required, but we implore you to, you know, question the advice you're getting. Where are these accountants, where are these advisors getting their information from? A lot of them have just assumed, you know, over the years that services are not taxable. And we're finding that this is creating problems for a lot of companies out there as the states find them. So question where your advisor is getting their information from. If you are an advisor, we can't always look at what's always worked or what we looked at 10 years ago, and it wasn't taxable at that time. We have to stay current on this. This is changing every year. And with this COVID-19, crisis, this recession that has been created by the business shutdowns, states are going to have to make up for lost money, and they want to get it very quickly. And one of the ways that we see states, do this is by expanding the tax base. And one way you can expand the tax base is starting to tax digital products, digital services, or services in general. This has been happening every year. We've seen more and more services become taxable, but over the next 12 to 18 months, we think that trend is going to accelerate. So again, don't, just because it's you've done something the same way for years doesn't mean that that is the right way to do it anymore. So ask questions, do the research yourself, reach out to someone like us for help in determining if what you sell is taxable or not. That's all I've got for today. Thanks very much for listening. And you can reach us at www.salestaxandmore.com. There are ways to ask someone to reach out to you right on the website. And we do have lots of free resources up on the website. So once again, www.salestaxandmore.com. It's all spelled out. And I hope that everyone is having a great day. Bye-bye.